Today's bonus video would not be possible without help from my sponsor, Card Trader. They're a great website and I'm happy to talk about them, but more about that at the end of the video. So let's get into today's.
Hey gang, and welcome back. In today's game, Ian, Maximus, and Mika have joined me, with Ian playing his Prime Speaker Vannifar deck. He keeps Forest, Quandrix Campus, 2 Islands, Volo Guide to Monsters, Path of Discovery, and Patriarch's Seal. Max is still testing out his Jansen deck, keeping Plains, Swamp, Vault of the Archangel, Drossforge Bridge, Smoke Bomb, Sculpting Steel, and Mercadia's Downfall. Mika's built the newly released Odd Acorn gang, keeping Tireless Provisioner, Garuk Cursed Huntsman, Swamp, Twilight Mire, Draykeeper, Viridescent Bog, and a Bitter Blossom. I'm also playing one of the Precon commanders with Bello, but I've upgraded it as well, keeping Mountain, Eidolon of Blossoms, Arcane Signet, Forest, Glorious Sunrise, Gilded Lotus, and a Destiny Spinner. Ian wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a tapped Quandrix Campus. Max plays a tapped Drossforge Bridge. Mika draws and plays a Twilight Mire. I've just got a Forest for turn. Ian plays a Forest and passes after that. Maximus plays a Nomad Outpost and passes to Mika. Mika has a Viridescent Bog for turn, and the first spell for the game, casting Bitter Blossom and passing. I draw, play a Mountain, and cast Farseek, searching for a land while passing to Ian. Ian draws for turn and plays an Island. He then casts Patriarch's Seal and passes. Maximus draws, just plays a Swamp, and passes. Mika loses 1, making a Fairy on his upkeep, and draws for turn. He then plays a Swamp and casts Scurry of Squirrels and passes to me. I draw, playing out a Reliquary Tower, and then casting Eidolon of Blossoms. I draw as it enters, and pass to Ian. Ian draws and plays an Island. He then casts Path of Discovery and passes to Max. Max has a Plains for turn, and he casts Sculpting Steel and has it come in as a copy of the Patriarch's Seal. He then uses the seal to help cast Ornithopter of Paradise and passes to Mika. Mika loses his 1, makes a Fairy, and draws. He plays a Swamp for turn, and then out comes Toski. He then moves to combat. He swings the Fairy and the actual Scurry at Ian, and he gets double Myriad triggers, so 2 Scurries are going at Max and I as well. None of us block, and all of us take the hits, with Mika drawing 5 cards, and then getting to put 2 +1/+1 counters onto the original Scurry, and 2 on Toski. With nothing else, Mika passes. I play a Command Tower for turn, and then cast Gilded Lotus. I then use it to cast an Arcane Signet, and then still have enough to cast Destiny Spinner, drawing a card from the Eidolon seeing an enchantment come in. Ian plays a tap Myriad Landscape for turn, and he casts Courser of Crewfix. He reveals a Forest off the top, and passes to Max. Max draws and plays a Mountain. He then casts Jansen. He floats some mana off the Ornithopter, and then sacrifices it to Jansen, making 2 treasure tokens. He then uses the floating mana to untap Jan with the Patriarch's Seal, and he passes after that. Mika loses 1, makes a Fairy, and draws. He plays a Tireless Provisioner, and then plays a Forest, making a treasure token. He then immediately sacrifices it to cast Nadir's Nightblade. Going to combat, he swings the Scurry and 2 Fairy tokens at Max, and Toski goes at Ian. He gets his double Myriad triggers, and I block 1 of the tokens with my Destiny Spinner, and Max flashes in Smoke Bomb, and sacrifices a treasure to make 2 constructs. Max then blocks the Scurry with the construct, and Ian blocks the Scurry with the Courser. Mika's still able to draw 5 cards though, and with the Nightblade out, we each lose a total of 4 because of the Scurry tokens leaving. But he's unable to put the +1/+1 counters on anything because of Smoke Bomb giving everything Shroud. With nothing else, Mika then moves to his end step, and discards down to hand size. I draw and play a Forest, and then cast Bello. I follow up with Nature's Will, drawing from the Eidolon of Blossoms, and then go to combat. I swing out at Mika with my Gilded Lotus, Nature's Will, and the Blossoms, all of which are 4/4, hasty, and indestructible. Mika blocks 1 of them with a Fairy token, taking 8, and drains us for 1 as the token dies with the Nightblade. This has me getting to draw 2 cards, plus untap my lands because of Nature's Will, and in my second main phase, I cast Glorious Sunrise. I then pass turn. Ian draws and plays Volo, which puts a Forest to hand when it explores. He then plays a Forest off the top of his library, gaining 1. He then casts a Gilded Goose and gets to make a copy of it with Volo, and reveals another land off the Explorer and puts it to hand. He passes to Max after that. Max's upkeep has the Smoke Bomb trigger going on the stack, and he sacrifices it to Jansen to make some Construct tokens, and then draws for turn. He plays a Vault of the Archangel and passes to Mika. Mika loses 1, makes a Fairy, and draws for turn. He plays a Forest, making a treasure from the Tyler's Provisioner, and then casts Chatterfang. Going to combat, Mika swings 2 fairies, the Scurry, and Tusky at me. This has 2 Scurries going at Max and Ian, which make 4 extra squirrel tokens thanks to Chatterfang. I then block the Scurry with Destiny Spinner, while Max blocks his 2 Scurries with the Constructs and activates the Vault of the Archangel. Ian also blocks a Scurry with the Courser, and before moving to damage, Mika sacrifices the blocked Scurries to Chatterfang to take out Bello. This has Mika then connecting with his creatures, drawing 4, and puts a +1/+1 counter onto Tusky. We also get drained for 4 from all the Scurries leaving thanks to the Nightblade. After combat, Mika then casts a Golgari Signet. He then passes, and during his end step, I cycle Forgotten Cave, drawing a card. I draw and play a Mountain. I then Sorcery Speed cast a Braid and take out Chatterfang. After that, I recast Bello, and I then move to combat. I get my Glorious Sunrise trigger, giving all of my creatures +1/+1 and Trample, and swing out at Mika. Before moving to blocks, Mika casts Terra Sunder and takes out Nature's Will, and we all get drained for 1 off him using a treasure token. Mika then takes the rest, and I draw 3, and I then pass to Ian. Ian draws and plays an island, gaining 1 life, and then casts Diluvian Primordial. He gets a copy from Volo, and the copy enters and gets to explore, putting a land to his hand. He then casts Maya Braid and takes out Nanir's Nightblade, and he casts Terra Sunder to take out Bitter Blossom. The original one then enters and gets a +1/+1 counter from Explore, and he puts the card into the graveyard. He then casts My Farseek and Mika's Plum the Forbidden, but doesn't sacrifice any creatures to the latter. Ian then follows up by casting a Lotus Cobra using his Gilded Geese, and makes a copy, and then passes. During his end step, Max sacrifices a Construct token to make 2 treasure tokens. Max isn't drawing so well, and all he can do is play a tap Goldmire Bridge. Mika's got a Ravenous Squirrel in his main phase, and then plays out Coat of Arms. Going to combat, Mika swings the Scurry and 2 squirrels at me, and 2 squirrels go at Ian, and Tusky goes at Max, with the 2 Scurries coming at Ian and Max as well. I block the Scurry with Bello, Ian blocks 2 Scurries with his Lotus Cobras, and Max makes 2 Construct tokens with Jan before moving to blocks, and blocks all 3 creatures. He then activates Vault of the Archangel. Sadly I die, Ian drops to 11, and Max gains a little bit of life because of his creatures having Death Touch and Lifelink. In his second main phase, Mika then casts a Haywire Might and passes. Ian draws and plays a Forest. He then casts Reclamation Sage and gets a copy of it. He hits 2 lands including Beseiju with the Explorers, and the Sages coming in to strike Coat of Arms and the Haywire Might. With the target on the Haywire Might, Mika uses it in response to exile Ian's Path of Discovery. Ian then follows it up with a classic Acidic Slime, and gets a copy of it as well. It comes in, destroying Mika's Golgari Signet and a Forest. He then moves to combat. Ian swings the Diluvian Primordial at Mika, who chumps with a Fairy token. After that, Ian passes, and Max untaps Jan and then sacrifices a treasure to Jan during his end step to make 2 Construct tokens. Max continues to only seemingly draw lands, playing a swamp, and passing. Mika draws and plays a Necroblossom Snarl, revealing a swamp. He then plays Peerless Recycling, and he gets back Coat of Arms, recasting it. Going to combat, Mika swings out at Ian, with 2 Scurries going in at Max. Before moving to blocks, Ian responds by channeling Beseiju, which we'd seen earlier, to destroy the Coat of Arms. Ian then blocks the Scurry with a Goose, Tusky with the Acidic Slime, and the Ravenous Skirl with the other slime, while a Courser eats a 1/1. Max blocks the Scurries with 2 Constructs, and once more activates Vault of Archangel, gaining some life. Ian then takes 3, and with 3 creatures connecting, Mika draws 3. In his second main phase, Mika then casts Soul Ring, and foretells a card, and passes. Ian draws and plays a Cold-Eyed Selkie, and then gets to cast the Sword of the Animist, and equips it onto the Diluvian Primordial. He goes to combat, and swings everything at Mika, and goes to find a Forest from the Sword trigger. Mika chumps the Primordial with a Fairy, and the Acidic Slime with a Tireless Provisioner, Max decides to get in on the action though, casting Mercadia's Downfall to give Ian's creatures +3/+0. The rest of them then connect, with Mika dropping to 10. Ian then passes, and during his end step, Max makes 2 more construct tokens with Jan by sacrificing his Goldmire Bridge. Max draws and plays a Plains. He then casts Reprocess. He sacrifices all of his constructs and 4 lands to draw 7 cards. He then casts a Solemn Simulacrum and goes to find a mountain. Max then passes, and during his end step, Mika cracks a treasure token to cycle Baron Moor and draw a card. Mika draws for turn and plays a Swamp. He then casts a Haunting Voyage, naming Warrior. Surprisingly, this gets a lot back, with Chatterfang and Nadir's Nightblade coming in. He then plays a Squirrel Sovereign and goes to combat. He swings the Scurry at Max, and Toski and the remaining squirrels at Ian, which are accompanied by 2 more Scurry tokens. Chatterfang in turn makes 2 more squirrels as well, and Ian chumps Toski with the Cold-Eyed Selkie token and puts the original Selkie and the Gilded Goose on 2 of the Scurries. Max chumps with Solemn and sacrifices it to Jan to make 2 treasure tokens and draw a card. Ian then takes 6, and Mika gets to draw 3. With the Myriad tokens then leaving, the Nadir's Nightblade drains the table for 2, and Mika then activates Chatterfang, sacrificing 3 squirrel tokens to kill Jan and drain the table for 3, taking out Ian in the process. After that, Mika passes. Max draws and casts a Soul Ring, and he then plays a Wishclaw Talisman. He then activates it, searching through his library. He can't really find a good out to Mika, and scoops it up, and we move to the next game. Before we get into the game review, I just want to thank Card Trader for their sponsorship of this video. Card Trader is a massive marketplace with thousands of cards from hundreds of different sellers worldwide, and you can always find what you're looking for, or find something new. There's great support, as well as the Zero system, which is basically a PO box for your cards. They'll store them safely and combine shipping for international orders, so you can save on pesky fees. If you act now, you can use my code to sign up, and use the promo code MTGMudsta to save 5% off your first order.
Game review time. As always, before we get into this though, thank you to Card Trader for helping me make this video possible. If you like extra games and you like getting your cards in one easy package from a variety of sellers and selection and all kinds of cool stuff, definitely check them out, and be sure to use my promo link down below to get even more savings on your first order. Otherwise, yeah, there were a lot of savings, or a lot of value at the very least, from Mika this game, with that Scurry of Squirrels. Holy crow! That between that and like Toski, he was drawing so many cards, he had so many squirrels, it was awesome. That was really, really cool. I think the odd Acorn gang, well, at least for me anyway, is the preferred squirrel commander from that precon. I think Chatterfang still probably beats all 3 of them out. I think Hazel's a really good enabler in a deck, same as the odd Acorn gang, but I think Chatterfang is just that much better. Otherwise, yeah, it was super cool. It was difficult to fight against, I'll be honest. And even with Bello, and it felt like all of the good damage and connect I got against Mika, it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And then not having blockers afterwards was just rough. Ian has this like rotating Simic deck where he keeps changing the commander and tweaking it ever so slightly. The core of it stays mostly the same, as you saw, like with the Endrazor Forerunners and stuff like that. They're all pretty much still in there. It all really depends on what kind of mood he's in, whether he wants to copy stuff or whether he wants to tutor stuff with Prime Speaker Vannifar. So it's kind of cool to see like a deck that's built around a theme, and you just kind of switch in and out the commanders. Maximus's Jansen deck, Jansen, is a secret triad deck, basically. He wants to use, my understanding, is the triad from Assassin's Creed to basically make all of his creatures into base power 9/9, which is really cool. And he uses the commander to sacrifice stuff to get those mana values into his graveyard. It just unfortunately seemed like all he was doing was switching treasures into constructs and then constructs into treasures and so forth and so on. He wasn't able to sort of escalate his game a little bit. I think he was unfortunately unable to draw more draw spells, and that's really what he needed in the end. But otherwise, it was a lot of fun. It was a good game.
This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.